There's no thrill like discovery. The Discovery Channel. Explore your world. Shop faster, smarter, and easier than ever with high-speed cable internet service and Discovery.com. Shop from home and speed through a world of gift ideas for everyone in the store that's always open. So when your gift list is long, but time is short, streamline your shopping with high-speed cable internet service and Discovery.com. Go to discovery.com/high-speed to learn more about lightning-fast cable internet service and to find your local provider.
February 1st, 2003. A day of tragedy and mourning for America and the world as the Space Shuttle Columbia breaks up on re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. This is the story of Columbia's final mission and of the 7 brave astronauts brought together in the name of science and human understanding. With experiments geared towards everything from curing cancer to fighting fires, these pioneers were not only fulfilling their lifelong dreams of going into space, but also making amazing discoveries about life on Earth. This account of shuttle mission STS-107 was filmed mostly by the crew's in-flight cameras on board the final flight of Columbia. We take you inside the shuttle during 16 days of research to get to know these pioneers as scientists and as human beings. Cape Canaveral, Florida, January 16th, 2003.
Good morning from the Kennedy Space Center. In Florida, this is Space Shuttle Columbia Launch Control. Our countdown for launch of Space Shuttle Columbia on mission STS-107 is continuing on schedule this morning. Launch remains scheduled to occur at 10:39 a.m. Eastern Time, and our launch opportunity window extends for about 2 hours and 30 minutes.
This is the crew of Shuttle Columbia, 7 highly qualified astronauts. Rick Husband, age 48, mechanical engineer, Air Force colonel, father of 2. William McCool, age 41, record-setting athlete, renowned aviator, father of 3. Alain Ramon, age 48, Israeli Air Force colonel, decorated fighter pilot, father of 4. David Brown, age 46, Navy pilot, medical doctor, photographer. Mike Anderson, age 43, astronomer and physicist, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, father of 2. Laurel Clark, age 41, doctor, Navy commander, submarine medical officer, mother to 1. Kalpana Chawla, known as KC, age 41, flight instructor, PhD in aerospace engineering. This crew has been waiting almost 3 years to blast into orbit. With each delay came more rigorous training sessions added to their already aggressive regimen. making them one of the best-trained crews in NASA history. Astronauts, scientists, and crew trainers worked closely to choreograph and orchestrate the entire mission timeline. Dr. Angel Aboud Madrid, the lead scientist for one of the combustion experiments, was humbled by the experience of training these extraordinary people.
Of course, they ask a lot of questions, just like anybody would ask about the experience. Why are you flying it? What is that you're expecting to get? And then they got into the question of how can we help you to maximize your science? How do we act as your eyes, your ears, your hands up there to make this work? And that's when we started feeling a little bit more comfortable about explaining, okay, this is the way you can help us to do that. And it was not until the first lunch break when we actually started talking about general conversation that you started realizing that these were normal human beings.
It became obvious that this crew opened more than just their minds to learning. They also opened their hearts and homes to those who worked with them. Beth Van was one of the crew trainers for STS-107.
So with all of the slips, we had all these extra training sessions, and the crew members would often invite us to their homes or invite us to go out to dinner, as well as the scientists. So, you know, you're sitting around the dinner table and you're talking about your family and your life and where you're from, and it was just a really neat experience.
I'm kind of a joke is that I'm like their cruise director, and which plan out their schedule, make sure they're in the right place at the right time, going from training event to training event for those activities. My favorite photograph that I ever took with the crew is we had just finished our practice launch countdown, and the crew was taking a shot at the 215-foot level at the pad. And so I crouched down in front of them and had my picture taken. And the thing that I love about the picture so much is that I can see Rick Husband putting his hand on me, Culpa putting her hand on me, and Alon, and they just were so warm and caring, and they just reached out in friendship, and that's just a cherished photograph for me for the rest of my life.
The succession of frustrating delays produces a silver lining for everyone involved in this mission: the crew, the scientists, and NASA. They've become an international space family, a band of brothers and sisters, all working toward a unique scientific journey. Major breakthroughs in a variety of science disciplines are anticipated by researchers on the ground. This is the Telescience Support Center, just a floor above NASA's main mission control room at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Dr. John Charles is NASA's mission scientist for Columbia.
This is not a space station flight. It was an individual shuttle flight on a different orbit from the space station entirely, and dedicated from launch to landing to doing research. No construction, no spacewalks, just research in flight.
Columbia Launch Director. Go ahead. Okay, Rick, if there's ever a time to use the phrase, all good things come to people who wait, this is one time. And for you and your crew, best of luck on this mission, and from the many, many people who put this mission together, good luck and Godspeed.
We appreciate it, Mike. The Lord has blessed us with a beautiful day here, and we're going to have a great mission. We appreciate all the great hard work everybody's put into this, and we're ready to go.
Final checks are made, buckles are fastened, and visors are shut and locked. Years of preparation boil down to this single moment. The fuel canister, taller and heavier than the Statue of Liberty, is set for ignition. Some 500,000 gallons of highly volatile fuel will burn in under 10 minutes at a temperature of more than 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Rick, from our crew to yours, best wishes on your international mission to explore the science, peace, and potential that only space travel can offer.
15 seconds. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. 5, 3, 2, 1. We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national and international space research experiments.
reaches a height of 150,000 feet, the solid rocket boosters separate, sending craft and crew into orbit. The Columbia is now in continuous free fall around the Earth, floating in splendid silence 178 miles up.
Houston, Columbia, comm check from the brand new RDM Space Hab module on Air to Ground 1.
Columbia, Houston, Laura, you're loud and clear on Air to Ground 1.
We're thrilled to be in this beautiful new laboratory and anxious to get going on 16 days just packed full of science from many, many different disciplines. And we're thankful for all the hard work of the Space Hab team.
And Laura, thanks for those great words. You've got big smiles down here, and we're all looking forward to working with you for those days.
Columbia's 80-plus experiments will help us understand how to fight prostate cancer, reverse osteoporosis, design cancer drugs with fewer side effects, test new firefighting techniques, and reduce pollution-causing emissions. There is hardly time for a look out the window as the crew unstows gear and activates the Space Hab laboratory. Performing high-pressure science experiments is one thing, but dealing with a politically charged mission is another. And veteran shuttle commander Rick Husband is up to the task.
I think in my history, I've worked with about 55 different crews over time, and they're all great to work with. They really are. And I have learned that the commander will set the tone for a crew and how you work with them and how they work with each other and how they interface with everybody. It was going to be a very high-profile flight, having an Israeli astronaut on board, and they chose Rick because they knew if anybody, he could handle the stress, he could handle every aspect of the long mission and all of the science and organizing everything, and he would have a great attitude about it. And he was a perfect choice for STS-107 commander.
Rick, a spiritual father and husband, sang in his church choir. As a boy in Amarillo, Texas, Rick sat mesmerized at the television, watching launches at the dawn of the space age.
He was just a very kind, very good man, and not to mention it was just America. You know, he'd walk in the room and you'd want to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, he was Texas and apple pie.
Rick brings his strength and kindness to the Columbia crew and provides the atmosphere necessary for them to succeed as a team.
One time I told Casey that it was really a pleasure working with this crew. They were all very helpful. They were really acting as a team. And she responded, "It's all because of Rick." I didn't understand then, but when later on I heard the stories about he kept that crew together and we're very well focused, then I understood the importance of his role.
On this mission, the crew is split each day into 2 shifts, never missing a minute of space-time to conduct research. Rick, Casey, Laurel, and Alan make up the red team, while Mike, Willie, and Dave work together on the blue team. While the red team completes the post-ascent duties and readies many of the experiments, the blue team gets some much-needed rest for the tasks ahead.
Good morning, Blue, with a congratulations on your first wake-up in space.
Hey, good morning, Houston. The blue shift is up and awake and ready for our first full day in space. Space Hab Columbia, putting arms ergometer set up at work.
Okay, Dave, we copy. We know you can't wait to get on that bike.
One of the first experiments to be activated in the Space Hab module is the Advanced Respiratory Monitoring System, or ARMS, developed by the European Space Agency. But ARMS is actually all about using the legs and lungs. Crew members from both teams take turns measuring their breath composition and heart rate. This data will be valuable in developing treatments for hospital patients on Earth, who share the same muscle loss as astronauts in microgravity. Near the end of his shift, payload specialist Alain Ramon is hard at work preparing an experiment called MEDEX. Using a radiometric camera, MEDEX tracks the movement of dust clouds. This will help scientists predict weather patterns and understand the spread of communicable diseases. MEDEX is the first Israeli experiment to fly in space, but it's not Israel's top story of the mission. Ilan Ramon was a national hero in his country, even before it was announced that an Israeli would fly on board the shuttle. A decorated veteran aviator, Ilan was a clear candidate for the honor of being his nation's first astronaut. There was initial concern about a fighter pilot participating in an all-science mission, but Ilan quickly quelled any worries.
When I first started giving crew familiarization briefings, Ilan Ramon came up after the first one and told me specifically that this is very exciting. I'm probably going to be in this mission. I'll do anything you want me to do. I'll do it all. I'll do it the best I can. You'll be happy you've got me.
He did get a nickname, the Machine, because he just could pick up a procedure, read the procedure, and do it. There wasn't a lot of discussion. There wasn't a lot of questions. Ilan just did it.
Despite the increased media attention, Ilan, a family man with a great sense of humor, remained focused on the mission and his role.
He never made a big deal about the fact that he was the Israeli on the flight, even though there was so much hype and political stuff and the news wanted to focus on him so much. He just wanted to be part of the crew.
We're 30 seconds away from a live broadcast. Please stand by.
Part of an astronaut's job description requires public relations ability, and this crew knows how to charm its audience.
We're having a great time up here. We had a great ride to orbit, and all the activation of the experiments in the space hab went extremely well, and we've got our space legs and up and running.
The launch was pretty exciting, yeah. A lot of noise, shaking, but after about a minute or so, we got used to it, and it went pretty smoothly.
At any given time, we can be doing up to 3-4 experiments simultaneously. But it's a lot of fun. It's very stimulating, and we are enjoying it. Obviously, everything floats. The zippers and all of the belts that have D-rings that we hold things down with are always floating and hitting each other and jingling, and it makes this beautiful tinkling music in the background all the time. And it just caught me off guard, and it was beautiful.
Laurel's grace and thoughtfulness set her apart. She has a way of acknowledging moments as well as people who touch her.
One of the things Laurel did that was really special was from orbit, I think she sent out emails to different groups of people, and she took the time when she sent the email to have this big distribution list of people just to let you feel special that you got an email from orbit. And I'd never gotten one before, and I thought it was really great.
Growing up in Racine, Wisconsin, Laurel joined the Navy to pay her way through medical school. She became a submarine medical officer, underwent dive training with Navy SEALs, and earned her flight surgeon wings. A dedicated wife and mother, Laurel is known for the fun-loving balance of her personality.
Laurel was one of my favorites. And she was a medical doctor, she was a pilot, she was all these things, but she could walk in and say, oh, I like those shoes. You know, she was a girl's girl. I mean, she was just very down to earth, very warm.
I just think of her as just pure sunshine. She lit up a room when she was in there, and she's someone, when you went in, you had to hug her first before you could ever get down to business. She always wanted to have that personal touch first.
As part of Flight Day 3, the Red Team gets their hands dirty with the MGM, or Mechanics of Granular Materials experiment. MGM looks at what happens to soil under structures during an earthquake. MGM involves a cylindrical chamber filled with fine sand, a replica of a loose soil mixture on Earth.
Now our experiments are essentially bearing down on this axially, similar to what would happen in nature when building foundations push down on the soil. The specimen, because of no gravity, it would not slump down to a heap, but it stayed sort of intact.
The first experiment is a success, but the crew discovers a problem with the second, more complex experiment. A large wrinkle develops in the test cell, rendering it useless.
Rick's husband saw what was going on in the other ones, and he said, well, let me help you out. So he came and really pounded on the end, and that was on national television. I had all sorts of humorous comments from my colleagues throughout the day say, what on earth are you doing? You know, this seems very scientific, haha.
Rick's precise pounding doesn't fix the problem, leaving the MGM team without one of their critical experiments. But the crew is forced to move down the timeline. Meanwhile, at the Medex viewfinder, disappointment, as continual cloud cover hinders yet another day of dust observations. The crew and the team of scientists on the ground are hopeful the next day's observations will be more fruitful. John Charles and his team strategically work the timeline, but the MGM experiment is still off schedule.
Casey and the whole crew was working overnight trying to fix that experiment. Couldn't do it. She asked us if we wanted to take another test cell out, which wasn't supposed to happen at that time. But listening to her, there was just this point, it just clicked with us saying, you know, Casey absolutely knows what she's talking about. She knows so much about her experiment. She just knows what she's saying, and we really need to listen to Casey. And we did that. We took her advice. She started a new test cell, and it got us 6 very good experiments out of it.
Data from the MGM experiments will be used to design safer structures in earthquake-prone areas. These results can only be achieved in microgravity, but it is the fire experiments that clearly illustrate why space is such a unique and ideal place for scientific research.
A simple example of an experiment that is drastically different in weightlessness versus on the ground is anytime you have a flame. If you take a flame, a similar kind of experiment in weightlessness, a birthday cake candle or another flame source, and you ignite that flame, there's no rising. There's not this teardrop shape, there's not this extended shape of the flame, and the flame actually is more of a ball, and instead of being yellow like you're used to seeing in your birthday cake, it's more of a small blue ball of flame.
To further study these flame balls, Columbia carries an experiment called softball, or structure of flame balls at low Lewis number.
And Pop Columbia will go ahead and begin the softball test sequence, if that's okay, and hold when we are supposed to.
The purpose of the experiment is to keep a flame ball burning with the leanest fuel mixture, and the goal is to keep these flames burning as long as possible. This fundamental research touches on many aspects of combustion, from designing clean, efficient engines for cars and airplanes to arson investigations. While working on the softball experiment late one night, Mike Anderson decides to call down to his friend Laura.
Mike was doing a CM2 softball run, and we were waiting for a particular part of the experiment.
Space Hab Columbia for Laura.
Go ahead, Mike.
And I thought that, that's odd. He's calling down for me and not an experiment. So I answered, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, how's the family doing?
And I was just really kind of taken aback because it's a little personal conversation that we were about to have on an air-to-ground loop with lots of people listening. And I said, well, it's the middle of the night and I'm kind of tired. And my son, John Hayden's birthday is in a few days. He's going to turn 1 and I'm going to miss it.
What's on this coming Monday?
It sure is. He'll be a big 1.
Wow, well, happy birthday to John Hayden. 1 year old, that's great.
We proceeded to have just a short conversation in the middle of the night where I guess a lot of people listened, but it was special to me.
Mike Anderson once said he couldn't remember when he didn't want to be an astronaut. From his schoolboy days in Eastern Washington, through his years with the Air Force, Mike was working toward his life's dream. It would become a reality in 1998 when the shuttle Endeavour docked with the space station Mir. A religious man dedicated to his family, Mike has many responsibilities as payload commander on this flight.
Mike Anderson, payload commander, he was perfect for that job. He is so detail-oriented, so professional. Of the entire crew, everybody was pretty much outspoken and lively. Mike was the quiet, professional one.
Though his job requires a serious disposition, Mike is not without his lighter personal side.
Mike was very special. Being the payload commander, he was always very focused, very serious. But I treasured those moments when we'd start chatting because he loved to talk about cars. So, you know, he'd come walking into the training session and say, "Hey, Beth, you bought that new convertible yet?" Which was a joke because, you know, no, I haven't.
The scientific successes of the mission are due as much to Mike's dedication as to his optimism and professional attitude.
And for MEDEX coming up an area over water of 100% overcast.
Once again, cloud cover obstructs the MEDEX camera from any glimpse of dust storms. But the MEDEX experiment also intends to study lightning. Dave points the camera's high-powered lens right into the middle of a developing thunderstorm.
Tim, the MEDEX folks ought to be real happy with this. This is definitely the most intense that we've seen since we've been on orbit.
The MEDEX team has reason to be happy. Dave's camera work captures the first images ever recorded from space of the electrical phenomena known as sprites. Understanding these upside-down lightning bolts improves the efficiency of satellites and could even hold secrets to the evolution of the solar system. Before launch, astronauts packed a few valuable items to bring to space. In some cases, they offered to carry items for their new friends on the ground.
One day, I pull up my email at work and I see an email from Dave from space. And I open the email and I open it up and there's a picture of my family floating on the flight deck of Columbia. And you can look out the windows that look back into the payload bay, see the tail of Columbia in the background, and there we are just floating in space on Columbia. And it's just a cherished photograph for me now to have this from space. And if Dave hadn't emailed it, I would have never known that he took it.
A week into the mission, and the scientists on the ground are thrilled with the results of the experiments so far. As a special treat, the crew downlinked some favorite video highlights.
Next up for the blue shift was a blood draw back in the space hab. Here Laurel is, I think she's telling Mike at the moment that this isn't going to hurt her a bit. We've got quite a bit of stuff that we use for this, so we're provided with little clips of Velcro and the like to hold everything down. Of course, one thing about microgravity is instead of handing things, you can just pass them from one end of the nodule to the other. So that's really handy sometimes, the lack of gravity. This is Casey, and she's working on an experiment known as BioPact, which is from the European Space Agency. And there's 8 experiments in BioPact. The one she's working on is called Bones and studies human bone cells, trying to understand better how to prevent osteoporosis, not only the kind of bone loss that astronauts get in space, but something that might affect people that are at bed rest, or actually that everyone is at risk for on Earth, particularly women.
As it turns out, the softball experiment takes on a life of its own.
I just wanted to let you know we have visual confirmation on the ground that we have 3 flame balls, and the radiometer readings are good.
And they look great from here.
When I came into work that night, the other CIC informed me that Dave had started naming the softballs.
This looks like a pretty happy flame ball, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I think I'm going to name him Howard.
We copy, Dave, whatever works.
David Brown's fun-loving spirit and boundless energy complement his unquenchable thirst for knowledge. A gymnast who became a physician, built his own plane in college, and became a Navy fighter pilot. He'd done it all. But nothing was more important to Dave than documenting his extraordinary experiences.
Dave was what I call a documentarian of the crew. He wanted to film every aspect of the training and the mission. And he told me many years ago, because he had a camera with him all the time, he said, Robert, I may never get to do this again, so I'm going to capture every moment of it. And he meant that. He filmed everything, he photographed everything, he recorded everything, and he was going to make this incredible documentary of the entire time that they were together as a crew. And it got to be a running joke because he had a camera with him all the time. And I tell my family, if you see walkout on launch day, when we're all walking out together, if you see in my hand I'm carrying a camera, that's Dave's camera, because he wanted to film every aspect of everything.
We start off showing you an orbital sunrise from the shuttle. What happens in about an hour on the Earth happens as quickly as you're going to see it. Orbiter at night is a very pale blue, but rapidly it will become kind of reddish, turning to gold, and even brighter gold. And then the orbiter becomes quite white. So we're going 17,500 miles an hour, and it's a beautiful sight, and we get to see that sunset and sunrise every 45 minutes.
Astronauts live for moments like these. There is no question. This crew is having the time of their lives.
Elon is very handsome, but here comes Dave Brown at you too, live from space. And as you know, he used to be in the circus, so he's very, very happy here in space.
Well, you can see Elon here doing some space acrobatics in the module. And then taking some time to have a snack that he's brought up. And you can see how the fact that we're in microgravity with things floating like they do make eating a whole different experience. And here we show you what the personal hygiene kit looks like. This is kind of a shaving kit where we've got comb and shampoo, toothbrush, toothpaste. There's a shampoo coming out, you know, razor blades and various items in the Ziploc bag, and you know, the ever necessary deodorant for the commander. Once we've emptied the trash and had dinner and everything's all squared away, it's time to crawl into the sleep station. Willie's ready to go. He's crawling in. In the meantime, Laurel decides she's going to check out her sleep station as well. Inside those sleep stations, we've got some pockets on the far side that we can put clothing or books or anything we need. We've got a light in there that we can use to see what's going on. We've got some straps on the sleeping bags that allow us to kind of hold ourselves in place. You can see Willie there's got his head strapped to his pillow so he can feel like he's laying in bed at night ready to get a good night's rest.
Willie McCool, or Cool Willie as friends know him, was born to fly. The son of a naval aviator growing up in San Diego, Guam, and Texas, it was no surprise when he decided to enter the prestigious Naval Academy. He graduated second in his class of over 1,000 and went on to a distinguished career as a Navy test pilot. Willie, an extraordinary mix of intelligence, leadership, and modesty, a devoted family man who participates with zeal in everything that is asked of him.
He's always been that kind of fun, boyish kind of guy. We had Laurel Clark summed it up so well at the Cape once. We were doing practice launch countdown, and one of the things the crews learned how to do is they learned to drive this armored personnel carrier. It's called an M113. We kind of nickname it a tank. This is one of the means by which they could get away from the pad, and they all have to learn how to drive this thing. And Willie was learning how to do it, and he was driving, and he was obviously having a really good time doing it. And there were several of us watching from the side, and Laura was standing next to me, and as he goes by with his big Willie McCool smile, she looked up and she said, "You know what? Willie's an 8-year-old trapped in a 10-year-old's body." And it was just so true. He was having so much fun.
Good morning, Houston. Another perfect day in space. And with that, Blue Shift is ready to get to work. We think we got a whole control room full of flame balls here, so we're going to call this the Orbit 2 flame ball crowd.
We copy, Dave. We can get all those flame balls named in the mission summary that we send up.
Okay, the lead flame ball is named Kelly, though.
Obviously.
The final stage of the softball experiment hits a home run, using an even leaner mixture of fuel and air. Up to this point, the record for the longest-running flame in space is 25 minutes. But Mike begins to notice that the flame ball named Kelly is still burning after 35 minutes. After 45 minutes. Mike knows a scientific breakthrough is happening before his eyes.
Believe it or not, we still have a flame bulb present here. It's on the right-hand side of the screen, about an inch from the bottom.
The clock is still ticking, and still Kelly burns. 81 minutes. Unbelievable.
You now have the record for the longest burning flame ball in history.
The fuel mixture that kept Kelly burning for so long in space will help scientists set new standards for environmentally friendly combustion on Earth. The next combustion experiment wasn't trying to keep a flame burning, it was trying to put it out. Angel Aboud Madrid, a professor at the Colorado School of Mines, is the lead scientist for the MIST experiment. Water is used to put out common fires, but it can often do more damage than the actual fire. Fine water mist is being studied as an alternative fire suppressant.
So this will be used in places like airplanes, ships, commercial cooking areas, libraries, every enclosed space where water damage is a concern.
Water mist has many advantages. It's non-toxic, inexpensive, and more efficient than current sprinkler systems.
Just think about, for example, a place like the National Gallery of Art, the Library of Congress, where you can use just enough water to put out the fire and not destroy centuries-old documents or priceless pieces of art. That will be an excellent application of this technology.
Angel's experiment was one of the most challenging experiments for the crew to learn. They had to know the inner workings of every piece of hardware and know how to troubleshoot in orbit if anything went wrong.
They were very well trained, and they were our ears and our hands, and they were the best people to have up there. This is the actual apparatus that the crew trained with. It's a replica of the real apparatus, the one that they actually had up in space. You form a cloud, a very dense cloud, like a dense fog, in this section of the tube. We measure what the concentration is, what the droplet size is. Once this cloud is uniform, and that happens in microgravity because there's no gravity, it doesn't fall, it doesn't settle. Then we open the iris, and now we have one section with water and the other one without. So then we proceed to ignite the mixture, and there's an igniter that is located right here.
All the crew training paid off, but in more ways than one. The crew and Angel formed a true friendship.
And everybody is waving at Angel. Everybody here knows Angel. And here comes a wave from Mike Anderson and Dave Brown. And the Angel song is going on here.
And Angel says to send you all a big hug.
Copy, and Angel, you cannot believe this is happening, but here we are, and the EMS is almost ready to go in.
The experiment teams sit across the hall from John Charles's group in the Payload Control Center. The MIST team brings along their camera to document these once-in-a-lifetime experiences. The MIST experiment is next on the timeline, but something is wrong.
Mike let us know. He called down and say, guys, there's a problem here. The pressure is not going as low as you told us it was going to. We were 12 hours into the experiment, nothing was working. At that moment, there was no more crew time available.
Angel and his team work on the solution to their problem, while Mission Control discusses the timeline. 12 hours later, precious time is ticking, but his team has discovered the source of the problem.
The first thing we thought, well, there's a problem with this line, which is the one that it connects to the gas chromatograph, the one that measures the content of propane and air. We tried to locate what was available up there to fix the problem. And the solution was to kink the line, just like you would do with a water hose, a garden hose.
The solution has been found, but there is no crew time available. But Casey comes to the rescue. She offers to work through her scheduled half-day off, giving up her first chance to really relax and enjoy the view from space. The MIST team is back in business.
She called down and said that she was ready to help us in any way that she could, even in her off-duty time. So once we had that opportunity, we immediately sent the procedure up. She received that and started working on that.
Years of hard work all come down to this moment. Angel and his crew wait nervously for any response from KC.
Brad, Rick is with the camcorder, and he's going to try to point out in the areas of interest. And what I'm going to do is show you how the kink was formed in the GC line by Rick and myself. So here is the first kink in the GC line as shown in your drawing.
Once we were back into operational mode, things were connected, the key was pressed to again evacuate the tube, and this time we just saw the pressure going all the way down. And needless to say, there was boundless excitement down there. We were screaming and we were just so excited. We started dancing and having just a great time down there because we knew that that had solved the problem. We have not seen the mist or not a single flame, but we knew we were in safe territory due to the help of Casey.
I just feel really, really good deep down in my heart that MIST is working, and the MIST team must be feeling really, really good. So please pass my best to Angel and all the people who are working on this. I'm just very happy for them.
As a young girl in India, Kalpana Chawla chased airplanes at the military school near her home. She came to the United States to get her doctorate in aerospace engineering and to follow her dreams of flying. KC had been in space before, in 1997, but was especially excited about this all-science mission. KC is the consummate perfectionist, and her dedication to the team and the experiments benefits the mission in many important ways.
She's very quiet and unassuming, but so extremely knowledgeable on everything. Casey would come in first a lot, or we'd put her first because we knew she would mark the procedures up so well that the other three wouldn't have to do it. Casey was that good.
Casey has broken many traditions, as well as stereotypes.
The interesting thing about Casey, she was always very focused. But on break times, we'd chat, and she told me once about she's married to a musician. And she talked about going to see Deep Purple, and it just cracked me up thinking about Casey, who wasn't as big as a minute, at the front row listening to Smoke on the Water, you know. I mean, it was just great.
The 80-plus science experiments on Columbia were developed by some of the most accomplished scientists and engineers in the world. But there is a group of scientists who are new to the field of space science. The Space Technology and Research Students, or STARS payload, involves student scientists from 11 countries.
Getting these students involved so early in their careers and in their lives makes them stronger, and so that hopefully at some point they'll have that knowledge necessary to take it into their careers and actually do and conduct experiments or science or research that's necessary for the future mankind and the things that we're doing that are so valuable to us on Earth.
The experiments they designed include bees from Liechtenstein, a chemical garden from Israel, spiders from Australia, an ant farm from the United States, silkworms from China. Ilan checks on the progress of the experiments as remarkable moments unfold.
And here we're looking at silkworm, and it's hard to see, but we have one that hatched actually, and it's a butterfly there.
Exciting scientific breakthroughs are happening, and people on the ground want to hear about them. Crew members press their shirts and make their way to their final news conference.
Well, science-wise, the flight's been absolutely fantastic. I think a lot of our experiments have exceeded our expectations by 100%. You know, we've seen things that we really never expected to see on board this flight. For example, behind the camera, our combustion module the other day, we had a flame ball burning for over an hour and a half, which is just a new world record and just something that we really didn't expect to see. We've also got a very large cancer cell growing back there that's probably 100 times larger than we could have predicted. It's going to go a long way in the area of prostate cancer research.
Our Israeli-sponsored experiment, EDEX, looks at, among other things, the electrical activity coming from thunderstorms going up into space. We got a message from the ground and a picture showing this thing that we had filmed, and I was very fortunate enough to be the camera operator.
In the stars locker, Ilan opened it up to do some work, and one of the silkworms, cocoons, had just recently hatched. There was a moth in there that it still had its wings crumpled up and its abdomen full of fluid, and it was just starting to pump its wings up so that it would be able to fly. And life continues in lots of places, and life is a magical thing.
In their last full day in space, the crew performs final runs of the experiments and begins deactivating the SpaceHab module for the trip home. Packing also involves exercising their muscles in preparation for the return to Earth's gravity. The scientific teams on the ground are basking in the success of their experiment results that have been streaming back from the shuttle throughout the mission.
Things that the scientists had been hoping to see, they'd been dreaming about when they wrote the proposals. And in fact, the more interesting aspects of it were when they would do the investigation, they would see their just initial results on the TV monitors, and they'd say, well, that's completely unexpected. All the textbooks are wrong. I got to go write a new textbook now, because now we understand how that process really works, because we could separate out one of the most perennial confounding factors, which is gravity and the effect of gravity on that physical process.
And don't forget about the stuff on page 3-44. Right, we're checking that. We got the flight control power on. We're working through the rest of it as well. Thanks.
The recorder is on. The V10.
Okay. Okay.
On February 1st, 2003, the crew of STS-107 begins their final descent into the Earth's atmosphere for their long-anticipated return home. Part of the legacy left behind by the crew are the results of their hard work.
The science is to a large extent their legacy. Both the professional way of conducting science, basic attitudes and insight, they were quick studies, all of them, and dedicated to all these 80+ experiments. It's absolutely amazing.
So in the end, we got 90% of the data from the experiment, which is it's quite extraordinary considering the circumstances. And that data is being analyzed at this moment.
This mission is going to be a stepping stone, a building stone for future missions. We will be able to take these results and then move on and do the next thing in many of these areas to the betterment of the astronauts' health and safety and the betterment of life here on Earth through the work of the astronauts on Columbia.
Houston, for Rick, we'll take another item 27. Thanks for that, Houston. We'll give you another 27.
On February 6, 2003, crash investigators find an onboard camera with a tape still inside. The tape recorded the final 11 minutes of the crew as the shuttle Columbia attempted re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere.
During the mission, since I did talk to the crew, every day during the mission, I could tell that everything was so great, that they were having the time of their lives. The science was working. They were giving their all to make sure that it did.
Let me see, wait a minute. Yeah, the whole thing, because I'm going to give it back to you, right?
Every day what we do in honor of them. We were very lucky to have had the chance to work with them and to count them as friends.
You only want the camera back, right?
I think one of the most painful things for me right after the accident was not being able to welcome the crew and thank them for how successful our experiment and many other experiments had been. I struggled with that for weeks, but then I realized that in a way they knew how successful it was. You could see it on their faces when they were coming down, how happy they were, how convinced that they did a good job. And I'm glad that I saw that. And I know that we're eagerly awaiting their return back to Earth to tell their story. So I hope that in a very small way, our contributions and the success of our experiment can tell part of that story, the success of STS-107.
10-16, right? I got 16 written here.
Yeah, 22-10-16. Yeah, 22-10-16. Correct, sorry.